Welcome to another edition of the Gold Nose Podcast. I am your host, Gregory McCoy. This podcast is by a fan for fans. I am not a journalist. I am not a reporter. I am not an insider. I do not work for a website. The majority of my content comes from me, in my opinion. Other information comes from the internet. Florida State had this recruiting extravaganza this past weekend. And I'm relatively new in terms of how the recruiting process actually works, because up until recently, it was just my philosophy was just get guys, bring them in, train them, teach them, and hopefully they pan out. But I recently learned, I thought recruits were coming to visit universities, schools, whatever, on their dime. The schools actually pay for the recruits to come to them. And as I learn stuff, I've known that for a while, but and I say that to say that having this recruiting event, extravaganza, whatever, I mean, your boy Manny Diaz last year called it fake momentum. I mean, I'm not going to say there's some truth to that, but I mean, there's some logic to it. I understand that you have to do these events to get your name out there, to appeal to guys, to try to get recruits. I understand that, but recruiting to me comes down to what you do on the field. It doesn't. You can have the greatest university in the world. You can have the best atmosphere. You can have all the peripheral stuff. If your team is not successful on the field, I mean, it's not really going to amount to successful recruiting classes. And I just think that all the guys that Florida State went after last year doing these same kinds of events, who did we actually get? I mean, when Jackson State can take two of your guys, Jackson State has nowhere near the facilities that Florida State has. I mean, you would think that Florida State would have Jackson State beat in every category except for one, and that's Deion Sanders. He was the difference, probably. And their team has success on the field. So, if Florida State goes out this season and has success on the field, I think that will immediately, have an effect on recruiting. They signed some 3-star defensive tackle from North Carolina, New Bern, North Carolina. I don't even know the young man's name. I mean, that's great. That's awesome. I hope he comes to Florida State. I hope he is all-time great. But for us to get the upper echelon guys, we have to do better on the field. We did better on the field this past season, and I think that got us some guys. So, 5-7 is not going to be acceptable this upcoming season. It's just not. And I think if he goes 5-7, I don't think you fire him. I don't think you fire Norvell if he goes 5-7. But I say going into that 2023 season, the majority of that roster will be his. Of those 85 guys, he's probably going to have 60 to 70 guys that are his now. that he recruited, whether it's transfer portal or high school recruiting, 60 to 70 of those football players are going to be his, and it's just going to be no excuses at that point. So, if I'm Mike Norvell, quarterback development is essential, but offensive line development is essential also. And I think if you go with Gibbons, the dude from Wisconsin, Lyles, and Washington as your interior, I think that's a pretty good interior. Now the question is, who's going to be your right tackle? Everybody, the general consensus is that Robert Scott is going to be the left tackle. I'm not sold on him, so I feel like both tackle spots should be up for grabs. Let these young guys compete. I wish Julian Armella would have been an early enrollee, but I guess he's not. So though, I think the defense is going to be pretty good. I don't think you can go in with blinders and say Jarvis Brownlee is a starter. I just don't feel like you can go in with blinders and say he's a starter. He made improvement, but he also, was a part of the most infamous loss and being the cause. I ain't gonna say he was the cause of it, but he was a part of that final play and the missed tackle. Okay. So, and just, he improved. I'll just say that, man. I don't, he's a young guy, young man. I don't want to dump on him. He improved tremendously from the first year under Mike Norvell to his second year under Mike Norvell. So hopefully he can continue to improve. But I'm not sold on him as a starter. I like Knowles. I like Cooper. And I want to see what Washington, the DB Washington has. I want to see what Tate has. I want to see all these young guys that they brought in, because we're like super stacked at DB. So I just want to see what these guys have. And it's just like I've said many, many times, you can't get stuck on this guy because of what he does in practice. I've seen some all-world practice players, when I played football. I've seen some all-world practice players, but when the lights come on, on the field and it's game time, you can't find them, and vice versa. I've seen some great game day players that sucked at practice. So, at some point you got to put players on the field and just see if they can play. Lloyd Willis. You got to see what he can do against real competition, not UMass. So, I don't know how these guys evaluate their starters, the coaching staff, but just marching Mackenzie Milton out there instead of Chubba Purdy, because Mackenzie Milton looked better in practice. But when he got into games, he sucked. Let's just be honest. If we just keeping it real, he sucked. Every game he played, maybe with the exception of the Notre Dame game, and he was probably playing off all adrenaline, he sucked. And that was because of the bad leg. I'll give him that excuse. Okay? But at the end of the day, you chose to put on the pads and go on the field. You sucked. So the whole reason why I'm saying all this is you can't get fixated on one guy. You can't get fixated on Brownlee. You can't get fixated on Scott. You can't get fixated on anybody on this roster. Okay, you got to play guys, and you have to take advantage of their skill set. Amari Gaynor, excellent blitzer. Okay, he's not gonna be an every down like middle linebacker or weak side linebacker in the league. He is gonna be a 3-4 linebacker. He's gonna be a 3-4 linebacker, outside linebacker. He's gonna put on 20 more pounds. He's gonna be an outside linebacker, and he's probably gonna be a beast in the league because the coverage skills are not there. But he's a better pass rusher than coverage linebacker. I've seen enough of his tape to say that. And that's just how I feel about Amari Gaynor. LSU signs the former LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels. I'm pretty much saying he's gonna be the starter against Florida State. I think adding him, he's the best quarterback on the roster for LSU. So, LSU is gonna be a tough game in New Orleans. I'm predicting a loss. I just hope it's not a blowout. Before that, I thought it was going to be a close game. Florida State actually played against this guy in the Sun Bowl, his true freshman year. Pretty good quarterback. So, I'm just hoping for that game we can show up like we did in the Notre Dame opener this past season. I don't know, man. My whole thing with Florida State is when is the university and the powers that be, the boosters, gonna really start investing in this program? Because, we just not there yet. I think Jimbo took this thing about as high as it can go without the resources. And at some point you got to invest in football. You can't say, we're going to try to get the most by investing the least. And I think that's how Florida State has pretty much done with their football. I think that's pretty much how they've done their football program since I've been a fan. Try to maximize great results without investing a lot in it. Not to the likes of Texas A&M or Alabama or LSU or Ohio State, Clemson. You got to be all in to get maximum returns. And, just from the outside looking in, I don't have inside knowledge of anything. This is just my opinion. It just doesn't seem like what they're doing off the field in terms of investing in the football program is translating to on the field. You can look at some of the best programs in the country and see, okay, they're doing great things off the field because they're doing great on the field. So, that's where the program is right now. And if and when they decide to go all in on the football program, is Mike Norvell the guy? I think he's a pretty good coach, man. When I first started doing this podcast, I really wasn't a fan of his. I just felt like it was going to be Willie Taggart Part 2, but, I like what I saw last season. I think, You just got to make better personnel decisions. Quit sticking with guys that are not performing in games. I think that was really the first mistake that he's made in his short tenure as the head coach is not playing Chubba Purdy, a guy that you recruited. Okay? And just from a physical standpoint, he was a better quarterback than Mackenzie Milton. Just from a mobility standpoint, if nothing else, Chubba Purdy could take off and run. So, it would have been nice to have had Jordan Travis, Chubba Purdy, and A.J. Duffy. I think that's, and Tate Rodemaker. I think that's a pretty good quarterback room. So, and I just hope this fan base sticks with the team. I've never bailed out on this team. I've been very angry the last couple years, but it's just a game. But as a fan is short for fanatic, so you kind of lose a sense of reality when you're cheering for your team. You almost take it personal. And to really describe some of the things that you go through is just crazy. Like the Notre Dame game, so many highs, so many lows, and then your kicker gets iced by the head coach. It's just crazy, man. So I don't know, man. I just want us to start getting elite talent again. The Dalvin Cooks, the Jameis Winstons, the 5-star guys that really make a difference. Your 4 stars are your core guys. Your 5 stars are really what's going to put you in the national championship. So I want to just get back to getting those type of players. We're not getting those type of players anymore. We're getting 3 stars. And, every once in a while you'll find you a gem amongst the 3 stars, but it's hard. You got to have a really good development program to bring out those gems. Some guys can be no stars and be great football players, but you have to have a great development program to get that. And that's when I say the off the field stuff is what Florida State has to get better at. You just watch some of the great teams. They look, in great physical condition. Florida State doesn't look like a great physically conditioned team. Now, we have individual players that look great. Steven Dix, Amari Gaynor, Jordan Travis. These guys, they look like they get in the weight room. But as a whole, when you compare them to other teams, we got pushed around. In the Clemson game, we got pushed around. And I think Clemson is going to come back to the pack even more this year. No pun intended. They lost both coordinators. And I felt like your boy that went to Oklahoma, the head coach, who I have a lot of respect for him as a defensive mind. His defense is really what kept that team together. And we're going to see how that new defense works. You know, can they maintain the level of excellence that they've had for the last 6-7 years? So, I think that's all I got for